with the monitor, with the staff that the monitor is going to need, we create a new bureaucracy. And when you create a new bureaucracy in the state of New York, it stays in existence forever.
That Assemblyman Dov Hiking today railing against having a state monitor on the East Ramapo School Board. He could be fighting a losing battle, though. A couple hours ago, the state assembly passed a bill that would put in that monitor. And now it heads to the state Senate next, and a state report that was highly critical of the district recommended the monitor we're discussing. East Ramapo has in recent years, as many of you know, funneled more and more money out of public schools and into private Jewish yeshivas. Now the board, controlled by Hasidic Jews, needless to say, parents of the public school kids, none too happy. And we've talked about this at the table before. Andrew, you follow not only the vote, but also the dialogue on the floor. You've talked to a lot of the principals in Rockland. I should also make, on a programming note, Ken Zabrowski, an assemblyman from the district. He'll be joining us tomorrow, as also will be Shelley Mayer.
One of the sponsors of the bill, by the way.
Exactly, to talk about the future of this. Talk about the politics of this, because it's uncertain what happens when it gets to the state Senate. But first, talk about the Assembly.
Well, this is one of those rare issues that really didn't stick to any party lines. Republicans in Rockland County supported the monitor bill, and that's primarily led by the county chairman and the county executive, Ed Day, who has been somewhat vocal and rubbed elbows badly with some of the Hasidic communities in Rockland County. There was a bit of a split among Assembly Democrats. Now, all of the all of the Democrats from Rockland supported the bill, sponsored the bill, voted for the bill. But other Democrats across the state, particularly from New York City and also very particularly Hasidic Brooklyn, were viscerally opposed to the bill. The objection was primarily that it sets a bad precedent, that you have an election that's now being set aside essentially to put in a monitor who can supersede the opinions of the school board. So that's where it broke down in terms of Rockland County. When we move over to the state Senate, which is where the bill goes next, the objection seems to be led by Republicans in the state Senate. So again, this is an interesting, strange bedfellows kind of split.
And as you mentioned, the governor has been vocal, saying that East Ramapo does need a fiscal monitor here. The report came out, and we've heard the language to it. At the risk of inside baseball, Richard, when people look at the vote, and what was the final tally, Andrew?
80 to 56, I believe, or something.
What you say the folks should take away from that isn't maybe necessarily the number, it's the abstentions and also that it was a managed vote.
Well, this happens repeatedly on things like control boards, which is what this is.
Right.
It happened in the city of Yonkers. It happened in New York City. It happened in Buffalo. It is controversial to displace elected officials. That being said, the problem here is so severe that the votes were there, and I don't think that's a small thing. The Senate has a different dynamic, different set of politics, and different set of regional interests. I don't think it goes through the Senate.
Really?
But, yeah, but I think the Assembly took the right step.
The majority leader in the Senate, Flanagan, says he doesn't want to put the bill through. He will if he has to, if there's enough push among the Republicans in the caucus, but he's not supporting it, and he's not going to be pushing it.
Interesting, especially after what I heard yesterday from the governor on how everyone was working kumbaya here to try and get this, the big ugly done in time. Dominic, if we can, Ralph, if we can bring up that graphic for just another second. We've talked before, but this is your district, and as we go through some of the items that we're showing the audience, we're not talking marginal, some of the cuts that have happened over the years. Kindergarten cut to a half a day because the funding got cut. Summer school completely eliminated. Programs cut by half, and now there's word, if the trending continues, cut entirely. Extracurricular activities, same thing, cut in half. Field trips eliminated, and there's more and more, in addition to a rationing of the tension that's in the community right now, primarily minority communities left behind, and this is the words from the monitor himself, and then also obviously where the money's going and the supporters of that. To that end, was the belief that this can't be solved with the folks in place, that even with all the attention and the front page stories of the Times and programs like this talking about it time after time, it needed somebody from the outside to fix this?
Well, if you talk to the critics, they will tell you that an independent monitor, that there was no other option, that this board in place, they feel, never had the interests of all the kids, and that was predominantly concerned about only Hasidic kids. That's one side of the argument. I understand the other side of the argument that Mr. Brodsky brings up, and that is a duly elected board, independent. And so because we don't like the outcome of the board, are we now going to just displace everyone and replace them? But, but I also say, if we're looking at a board where there's alleged corruption, and that's not officially the case here, but wouldn't the governor or someone else supersede or step in? You wouldn't just let that board continue.
You can't.
No
statutory
or
authority.
a district attorney.
That you can indict people, but you can't displace elected officials without a law. Now, don't misquote me. I said I thought the law was necessary and a good thing.
Make that
but I
point.
did say that a debate saying under what circumstances do you throw elected officials out is not chopped liver and ought to be taken as a serious issue, even if the outcome is as today was.
Richard, it's a mess. But I say to my friends in the Black and Latino community, the answer is simple. If you feel that,
box, right?
If you feel there's a board that's not representing your interests, don't. And this is a historical problem I have with my own community. Stop complaining after the fact. Where were you on election day? It really is that simple. It really is that simple.
And there was just one a few weeks ago in the current board, 2 members were reelected and a candidate who was supported by the current board members was also elected. The budget also passed, so that was one of the arguments that the East Ramapo School Board used to try to ward off the monitor, and they're still trying to use in their dealings with the Senate. My question in all this is that it seems to me like you could make a compelling case for a civil rights violation, that the board is not protecting the civil rights.
Was unsuccessful.
Yeah.
That would provide a lot more credence, I think, to a lot of people for action to override what you're saying is the will of the people.
My
through an
only
election.
point is, and there's going to be political considerations. We talked about the Assembly and the Senate. I say to anyone, I don't care your politics, I don't care your shade of color, I don't care your religion, ethnicity, it doesn't matter. Objectively look at what's going on and imagine just this. Your kid's in the East Ramapo Public School District, and then you tell me if there's equality here and fair treatment. If you believe at the end of the day it is, or do you believe who decides to turn out and vote here and put who on the school board should be the sole determinant as to whether a kid gets an equal education, we can have different thoughts on this. But if you believe that every kid should get a fair shake, I think you're going to have a really hard time saying the status quo ought to prevail there. Hopefully, the Assembly is a sign for the Senate, and hopefully the table, they'll probably write, is wrong here, and it's got a good chance to get through. Okay, when we come back here, we're going to leave at least the suburbs of Rockland and, for that matter, New Jersey, and go to New York City. Bill and Hillary, not Bill Clinton, I'm talking Bill de Blasio. We're looking at what can only be described as a bizarre relationship between the mayor and a presidential candidate, a candidate that he got his political start working for, and it just keeps getting weird.